You started as a man, wild, untamed, alive. But somewhere along the way you became what she wanted. You looked into her eyes and forgot your own. Jean-Paul Sartre, the philosopher who lit Paris with rebellion, wrote a truth every man should hear. Man is nothing else but what he makes of himself. Yet you've made yourself into her puppet, living for her approval, her comfort, her gaze. This video isn't here to comfort you, it's here to wake you up. Through 6 brutal truths drawn from Sartre's existentialism, we'll expose how you lost yourself to her, why she pulls away when you need her most, and how to reclaim the man you were meant to be. Stop being her shadow. This is Sartre's call to freedom. Sartre called it mauvaise foi, bad faith. It's the moment you stop being the author of your life and become a character in her story. You didn't notice it happening. You thought you were loving her, but you were betraying yourself. Sartre's being and nothingness says consciousness is a void, a nothingness that only gains meaning through your choices. But you chose her comfort over your truth. You softened your edges, muted your fire, became the man she could predict. And now you're trapped. You feel it every day. You chase her texts at 20, or sit in silence at 50, wondering why your marriage feels like a slow death. Psychological studies show men often reshape their identity to meet romantic expectations, driven by a need for validation. Sartre saw this as bad faith, living for her gaze, not your will. You think she completes you, but she senses your surrender, and it repels her. This trap is universal. Sartre argued that humans flee freedom because it's terrifying. You fled into her, believing her love would define you. But Sartre's truth is brutal. No one can give you meaning. You handed her the steering wheel of your soul and she feels the weight. Whether she's 19 or 45, she knows when you've made her your god. And gods don't desire worship, they demand it. Society sets the trap. From rom-coms to family scripts, you're told to serve, to please, to be safe. Sartre despised this. He called it living for others, not yourself. In No Exit, he wrote, "Hell is other people, not because they're evil, but because their gaze can swallow you. You've let her gaze define you, and now you're a puppet, dancing to her indifference." Breaking free starts with honesty. Sartre's call is to face the void. You are nothing until you choose. Ask yourself, are you living for her or for you? Is her smile your purpose or your chain? This isn't about blaming women. It's about owning your choices. The man who admits his bad faith begins to reclaim his freedom. Step out of her story and start writing your own. This truth hurts, but it's your key. Sartre's philosophy demands you reject the lie that she defines you. Women don't want a puppet. They want a man who dares to be free. Face the void, choose yourself, and begin the journey to authenticity. Hell is other people, Sartre wrote, and you've felt it. Her gaze doesn't just see you, it reshapes you. You started as a mystery, untamed, but you let her eyes turn you into a version of yourself that fits her world. You thought it was love, but it was surrender. Sartre's existentialism reveals why. When you live for her validation, you lose yourself in her stare, becoming a shadow of the man you were. You know this feeling. You adjust your words, your style, your dreams to keep her close. Psychological research on social mirroring shows men often mimic partners to gain approval, but Sartre's insight is sharper. You're not mirroring, you're erasing. You've made her the judge of your worth, and every time she looks away, you feel like nothing. That's not love. It's bad faith, Sartre's enemy. This erasure has roots. In Being and Nothingness, Sartre argued that we crave others' approval to escape the anguish of freedom. You crave her gaze because it feels like meaning, but it's a lie. She senses this need, and it pushes her away. Whether she's young and impulsive or mature and calculated, she feels when you've placed her on the throne of your identity. And thrones don't spark desire, they kill it. Society fuels this trap. From pickup lines to marriage vows, you're taught to win her to be what she wants. Sartre saw through this. In No Exit, he showed how we become prisoners of others' perceptions. You're her prisoner, living for her approval instead of your truth. You think you're building a life, but you're building a cage, and she's already looking for the exit. The way out is to face her gaze and not flinch. Sartre's call is to reject the need for her validation. Question every moment you bend. Why do you soften your truth? Why do you chase her silence? In practice, this means pausing. Next time you feel her pull, don't react. Choose your path instead. Studies on self-awareness show that resisting external pressures builds autonomy, aligning with Sartre's vision of the man who exists for himself. This shift is brutal, but liberating. When you stop living for her gaze, you reclaim your shape. Sartre's philosophy demands you face the anguish of being seen and choose yourself anyway. Women don't erase you. You erase yourself. Stop seeking her eyes and start seeing your own. That's the man she can't look away from. Sartre's truth is a blade. Freedom comes at a cost, and most men run from it. To be the man who defines himself, not her puppet, you must pay the price of solitude, risk, and rejection. Sartre's being and nothingness says you're condemned to be free. Every choice is yours, but so is the weight. You've lived for her, but now you must live for you, and it won't be easy. You've felt this cost. It's the silence when you stop chasing her texts, the emptiness when you prioritize your mission over her comfort. Psychological studies on personal growth show that embracing autonomy triggers discomfort, but fosters resilience. Sartre's philosophy embraces this. The man who chooses himself faces the anguish of standing alone, but that's where his power begins. This price is steep. Society tells you to please, to compromise, to be safe. Sartre called this bad faith, a betrayal of your freedom. You've betrayed yourself every time you softened a truth to keep her calm, every time you hit a boundary to avoid her leaving. She senses this betrayal and it kills her desire, not because she's cruel, but because desire needs risk, not safety. The world will resist. Women, friends, even family will call you selfish, cold, distant when you choose your truth over their expectations. Sartre faced this. He was vilified for his ideas, yet stood firm. In No Exit, he showed that freedom means defying the gaze of others. Your freedom means defying hers, not to hurt her, but to be whole. She doesn't want a man who bends. She wants one who stands. Paying the price means discipline. Sartre's call is to choose yourself daily. Say no to her tests. Hold your silence when she expects you to beg. Walk away if you must. In practice, this looks like setting boundaries. Focus on your work. Let her chaos be hers, not yours. Studies on Stoic practices show that embracing discomfort builds unshakable strength, echoing Sartre's vision of the man who pays for freedom with solitude. This cost is your liberation. When you pay it, her power fades. Sartre's philosophy demands you face the anguish of freedom to find your core. Women don't want a puppet. They want a man who dares to be alone. Embrace the price, stand in your truth, and rise as a man who needs no one to complete him. Sartre's shocking truth. Women don't want your need. They want your freedom. You've spent years becoming what she wants, but the man she desires is the one who doesn't need her. In Being and Nothingness, Sartre argued that desire thrives on risk, not captivity. When you make her your purpose, you kill the mystery that drew her to you. Become the man who exists for himself and she'll feel your gravity. You've seen it. The man who says less, gives less, holds his shape in her storm. He's the one she can't forget. Psychological studies on attraction show women are drawn to men who display independence and self-assurance, not desperation. Sartre's insight is deeper. The man who lives in bad faith, needing her approval, becomes predictable, tame, safe. And safe kills desire. This truth is ancient. Sartre wrote that the human heart longs for what it cannot possess. You've made yourself hers. But the man who can walk into her life and just as easily walk out forces her to face her own abyss. That confrontation sparks desire, not because you're cruel, but because you're free. She doesn't want a puppet. She wants a sovereign. Society lies to you. You're told to open up, to be vulnerable, to pour out your needs. But Sartre saw through this. In No Exit, He showed that transparency can dilute your presence. The more you confess, the less you are. You've turned your soul into a plea, and she recoils, not because she's heartless, but because desire needs distance, not surrender. The man who exists first, who chooses his values first, is the one she orbits. Becoming this man means risk. Sartre's call is to hold your ground. Don't chase her silence. Don't explain your truth. Don't bend to her tests. In practice, this looks like restraint. Say less, act with purpose. Let her feel your weight. Studies on charisma show that understated confidence draws people in, aligning with Sartre's vision of the man who doesn't need to be seen to be whole. This sovereignty is magnetic. When you live for yourself, she feels your presence, not your plea. Sartre's philosophy demands you reject the need to be loved and embrace the man you are. Women don't want your chains. They want the man who walks free. Be that man, not because you seek her, but because you seek yourself. Every day you face a choice. Be yourself or become her mirror. Sartre called it bad faith when you say yes when your soul says no, when you soften a truth to keep her calm, when you hide a boundary to avoid her leaving. These small betrayals aren't love, they're extinction. Sartre's being and nothingness demands you refuse the mirror, choosing authenticity over approval, even when it hurts. You know these moments. You send that extra text, apologize for your truth, stay silent when you should speak. Psychological studies on self-betrayal show that compromising your values erodes self-esteem, but Sartre's insight is brutal. Every time you bend, you lose a piece of your soul. She notices, not with words, but with her distance, her fading desire. She grieves the man you used to be. This refusal is subtle. Sartre argued that freedom is a daily act, not a grand gesture. You refuse the mirror when you don't chase her chaos, when you hold your silence instead of explaining, when you walk away from what drains you. These are not games. They're existential integrity. She tests your wholeness, not to break you, but to see if you'll break yourself. Don't. Society pushes you to mirror. From happy wife, happy life to endless advice to open up. You're told to please, to perform. Sartre despised this. He saw it as fleeing freedom. In No Exit, he showed that we become what others expect unless we choose otherwise. You've chosen her expectations too long, and now you're a ghost of your former fire. Refusing the mirror means courage. Sartre's call is to act with truth. Next time she withdraws, don't chase. Let her feel your absence. Next time she tests, don't bend. Stand firm. In practice, this looks like discipline. Focus on your mission. Let her storms pass. Choose your values over her comfort. Studies on assertiveness show that holding boundaries builds respect, echoing Sartre's vision of the man who remains whole. This refusal is your rebirth. When you stop mirroring her, you become real. Sartre's philosophy demands you choose yourself, not her reflection. Women don't want a mirror, they want a man who dares to be. Refuse the lie, stand in your truth, and watch the world lean into your presence. Sartre's ultimate truth is a call to authorship. You are nothing until you choose to be everything. You've lived as her puppet, but now you're free to write your own story. In Being and Nothingness, Sartre declared that man is condemned to be free. No one else can define you, not her, not the world. Become the man who exists for himself, and you'll be the one she can't forget. Not because you chased, but because you are. This authorship begins with silence. Sartre taught that freedom is terrifying, but it's your birthright. You've spent years filling the void with her approval, but now you choose your fire, your work, your truth, your legacy. Psychological studies on intrinsic motivation show that men who pursue self-defined goals find unshakable peace, aligning with Sartre's vision of the man who authors his existence. Becoming the author means action. Sartre's call is to choose daily. Write your book, build your empire, speak your truth, not for her, not for applause, but because you must. Refuse to soften your edges, to explain your silence, to beg for her gaze. In practice, this looks like discipline. Cut the noise, face the solitude, work on what burns in you. Studies on self-discipline show that consistent action toward intrinsic goals builds a life of mastery, echoing Sartre's rare man. The world will test you. Society, women, even your own doubts will demand you bend, but Sartre faced this and stood firm. In No Exit, he showed that authenticity means defying the gaze of others. Your authenticity means defying hers. Not to win her, but to be whole. She may stay, she may go, but you remain, and that's the only story that matters. This authorship is your legacy. Sartre's philosophy is a blueprint. Reject bad faith, choose your truth, create your meaning. Women don't define you, you do. Stop living for her gaze and start forging your fire. In Being and Nothingness, Sartre saw man as a project, not a product. Your project is you. Build it with or without witnesses. Live as the author and let the world orbit your truth. You are not who you were. Something has shifted. The silence is no longer loneliness, it's home. You're no longer her puppet, but the man who writes his own pages. Sartre's brutal truth is your freedom. You are nothing, and from that nothing, you are everything you choose. Like, share, subscribe, and support the channel through the link below. Step into your authorship. Be the man you were always meant to be.